Ever since that small argument between my mother and my aunt, our house hasn't felt the same. When I was a child, Auntie was the first one to come to our house every Eid. She brought sweets, gifts, and laughter that filled every corner of our home. But one year, everything changed because of a small misunderstanding. It was about something as simple as a wedding invitation. My mother said she had invited her, but my aunt felt ignored. From that day on, she never visited us again. As a little girl, I couldn't understand how love could turn into silence so quickly. Every Eid, I waited by the door, hoping to see her warm smile again, but the door never opened. The sound of her laughter was replaced by quiet sighs and unspoken pain between two sisters. One day, I gathered my courage and decided to visit her myself. When she saw me at her door, she froze for a moment, then hugged me tightly. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Every day I think about it, I just wish things could go back to how they were." Her voice trembled, and in that moment, I realized that the years of distance had hurt her as much as it had hurt my mother. I went back home and told Mom what Auntie had said. My mother stayed silent, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. That evening, she quietly picked up the phone and called her sister. I stood by, listening to the sound of their voices, soft, broken, but filled with love. After 2 years of silence, they were talking again. That Eid, when Auntie stepped into our home once more, it felt like the house took its first breath in years. She smiled, handed me a small box of sweets, and hugged my mother tightly. The past couldn't be erased, but the love between sisters had found its way back home. The silence that had lived in our walls for years finally broke, with the sound of forgiveness. My aunt never came to our house. Not for weddings, not for Eid, not for any special day. I grew up hearing her name in quiet conversations, always followed by a long pause and a sigh from my mother. They used to be inseparable once, two sisters who shared everything from secrets to laughter. But life has a way of testing relationships. The day their father's property became an issue, love turned into bitterness, and silence took the place of affection. As a child, I didn't understand the depth of their pain. I only knew that whenever my mother cooked biryani, she always made an extra plate, just in case your Khala comes. But that plate always went cold on the table, untouched. Every knock on the door made my mother look up in hope, only for her eyes to dim again when it wasn't her sister. Years passed. I grew up watching that emptiness live between them. I tried asking my mother why Auntie never came, but she only said, "Some wounds take time to heal." Still, I could feel that her heart longed for one thing, to see her sister walk into our home again. Then one day, my mother fell seriously ill. She was admitted to the hospital for surgery. I called every relative, but when it came to Auntie, my mother said softly, "No, she won't come." Still, I dialed her number. At first, she refused. Her voice was distant, guarded. But when I told her, "Mom called your name before going into surgery," there was silence on the other end, then a faint sob. Hours later, as the operation ended and my mother was wheeled out, I saw a familiar figure standing beside her bed. My aunt was there, holding my mother's hand tightly, her eyes full of tears and regret. My mother woke up, saw her, and the two sisters just looked at each other. No words were spoken, because none were needed. Their silence said everything. From that day on, our house no longer felt empty. Auntie started visiting again, bringing fruits, laughter, and the warmth we had missed for so long. The distance that once defined their bond had finally faded. The silence between them had turned into love once more. And every time I see them together now, I realize one thing: sometimes, all it takes is a single moment of compassion to bring a whole family back together. It had been months since Auntie started visiting us again. The house that once echoed with silence now felt alive, filled with laughter, the smell of tea, and stories from the past. But even though things looked normal on the surface, I could still sense something unspoken between my mother and her sister. There was love, yes, but also guilt for the years they had lost. One evening, as the sun was setting and the golden light filled our living room, Auntie came with an old photo album. She placed it on the table and said, "I found this while cleaning my cupboard." My mother hesitated for a moment before opening it. Inside were pictures of their childhood, two little girls in matching dresses, smiling like they had the whole world in front of them. My mother's hands trembled as she turned the pages, and then she suddenly whispered, "We missed so much, didn't we?" Auntie's eyes welled up. "We did," she said softly, "but we still have today." That night, they sat together for hours, talking, crying, and laughing through their memories. It felt as if time had paused to let them heal properly this time. I watched from a distance, realizing how precious it is to see people who once stopped speaking finally rediscover their bond. A few weeks later, we hosted a family dinner for the first time in years. The whole family was there, cousins, uncles, aunts, and everyone kept saying how good it felt to see Mom and Auntie together again. The two sisters cooked side by side, joking like they used to, as if all those lost years had never existed. Then, as guests started leaving, Auntie turned to my mother and said, "I'll come next week too, no excuses." My mother smiled and replied, "The door will always be open for you now." That night, as I stood by the window, I heard a soft knock. Auntie had forgotten her shawl, and Mom rushed to open the door. They both laughed at the same time, that kind of laughter only shared by sisters who've forgiven each other completely. For the first time in my life, I realized the beauty of forgiveness. It doesn't erase the past, but it rebuilds what was broken. And now, whenever there's a knock on our door, we know it might be Auntie, coming not just to visit, but to remind us that love, no matter how delayed, always finds its way home.